If you've ever wondered how a detective novel can feel like a warm cup of tea on a rainy day, or if you like your mysteries to prioritize the quiet power of empathy, the complexity of human memory, and the gentle unraveling of life's mysteries over high-speed chases or dark alley rendezvous, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing Precious and Grace by Alexander McCall Smith. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're delving into the 17th installment of the #1 ladies detective agency, Precious and Grace. And as all of you know, I really enjoyed this series, and there are quite a few books in the series, 25 up to this point. And since I have reviewed, well, this is the 17th one, I've noticed that there are quite a few things that I try to do to make these reviews worth watching. First of all, I will give a pretty detailed description of the different cases, although I try to keep the actual complete resolution maybe to a minimum. And then on top of that, I also like to give you just a little update on the character development, which is a key part of these books. So with that in mind, let's take a look. And again, this is your warning that there may be some spoilers, although I do again try to keep the full resolution of the each of the cases under wraps. But let's see what we have in store. So we have in Precious and Grace, the #1 ladies detective agency is going to take on a very poignant case. There's a woman named Susan Peters who spent her early childhood in Botswana, and she returns from Canada seeking to reconnect with her past. She remembers a loving nursemaid named Rosie and hopes to find her and the house she once lived in. The investigation is anything but straightforward. For starters, Susan's memories are fragmented. Gaborone has changed significantly over the years. Multiple women claim to be Rosie, each with conflicting stories. And of course, Precious, with the assistance from Grace and Charlie, are going to navigate this emotional labyrinth. And so they publish a newspaper article with an old photograph of Susan and Rosie. They visit various neighborhoods based on Susan's recollections. They interview several claimants, each bringing their own complexities. And ultimately, they do have some success, but I will say this, that the reunion, for a variety of reasons, is going to be a bit bittersweet, and Rosie is not going to exactly be the idealized figure that Susan had remembered. And so both women are going to be forced to confront the realities of the past. But the true resolution also comes through mutual forgiveness and acceptance, and it highlights the novel's central theme of sometimes healing is more important than actually uncovering the exact truth, and I think that's a frequent takeaway from these books. Meanwhile, there are going to be several other storylines that will unfold. For example, Charlie, who is often seen as very immature, is actually going to show significant growth by contributing meaningfully to this investigation and expressing some genuine affection for Botswana's people, something that, you know, as a young kid, he might not show quite the same priority. And as usual, Violet Sopoto makes an entrance, and she has long been Grace's longtime rival ever since they were in the secretarial school together. And of course, Violet did terribly and barely passed, but Grace did amazing with her unprecedented 97% on the final exam. However, Violet is always up to something, and in this one, she has somehow been nominated for Woman of the Year, which causes quite the uproar. And I will say that after some looking and some digging and some discussion and discovery, you'll find out that, you know, as usual, Grace's efforts are going to be rewarded, and Violet is going to find some frustration. We also have the re-entry of an individual. Well, this is actually, I think, the second book that he's been back in. He was in like the third or fourth book. He disappeared for quite a while. His name's Mr. Polopetsi, and in this book, we're going to see him have a much bigger role, since he is actually going to get himself entangled in a dubious business scheme. And so Precious is going to intervene with her usual tact and kindness, and of course guide him back to some very ethical practices. And that is again going to not only involve her abilities to solve crimes, but also her abilities to deal with individuals. And then there's also a very touching subplot that involves a stray dog that Fanwell is going to accidentally hit with his car. But Fanwell, who is the younger of the two apprentices, he's committed to figuring something out. And so you have this real moment of compassion, and not just of curiosity, but of responsibility coming from Fanwell. So I would say that you're going to see significant growth from a lot of characters in this book. Precious is going to continue to embody the wisdom and empathy of the whole series. She, of course, approaches each case with her patience and understanding that emotional truths often lie beneath the surface, and her guidance helps others navigate their own moral dilemmas. And then, of course, Grace shows both her strength and her flaws. This is something that's very true about Grace, who has a little more fire in her, which can, of course, lead her to be just a little too aggressive in some things. And while her ambition and pride sometimes lead to hasty judgments, she also demonstrates growth by collaborating effectively with Precious and by supporting the agency's mission as a whole. And then, like I said, Charlie experiences significant development, transitioning from a carefree apprentice to a more thoughtful contributor. He earns Precious's respect and even affection, referring to her as a maternal figure, which is a really big change and a really big shift for Charlie. Fanwell remains a steady presence, and he, of course, showcases his quiet dedication and kindness, particularly in concern to this injured dog. And Fanwell, I don't know if I've said this before, I've done so many of these I can't remember, but early on, you just kind of had the apprentices lumped together. And then with time, you kind of see him becoming a little more distinct. And Fanwell is proven to actually be a much better mechanic than Charlie. But he is also proven to have more problems at home and just things that he has to resolve. But he is clearly a kind-hearted person. And this is one of those storylines that really helps to reflect that. And so I would say all in all in this one, you see that Precious and Grace, that they, as usual, offer a departure from the conventional detective stories, and instead they focus, not so much on suspense and plot twist, but instead we dive into the intricacies of human relationships and the importance of understanding and forgiveness. And the novel's strength lies in its character-driven narrative and the exploration of themes such as memory, identity, and reconciliation, particularly in this novel. And while the pace, as usual, is, we'll say, gentle, the emotional resonance, I'd say, is also still very profound. So for readers seeking a contemplative and heartwarming story, this book delivers. However, those looking for the fast-paced action that they want from a lot of detective novels, they're not exactly going to find it here, but I, as usual, think that there is wonderful stuff to be found in this novel. Let me give you, as usual, some of my favorite quotes. That's another thing that I feel like worth contributing as I take a look at each of these books and try to give a useful summary. I also think that covering some of my favorite books, because I just think that Precious is so good with coming up with these wonderful little sayings, or just her interactions with people are worth recounting. So here are some of my favorite quotes. We have, "Saying sorry does not make you look small, it makes you look big," said Mr. J.L.B. Matekoni. "But some people are small inside, and if you're small inside, you can't be big outside. It just won't come to you." "Love was like rain. There could be periods of drought when it seemed that love would never return, would never make its presence felt again." Of course, remembering that Mr. J.L.B. Matekoni is a mechanic, and so he's always thinking about what cars could need, and he's comparing lots of life's problems to the problems that cars might have. And so this is a really profound quote from him. "A change of oil. Yes, that was what we all needed from time to time, whether we were an engine or a person. And there were other similarities to be explored. Engines had to be handled gently, as did people. Forward gears were better than reverse gears for people as well as engines." Here's another good one. "Lists," she thought, "are the stories of our lives. They give a picture of who we are and what we do every day." I love that one. Isn't that not true? Like, we all have our list of things that need to get done every day, whether it's in our head or on a piece of paper. And I think what that list is says a lot about who we are. "Make sure that the road is always clear for your enemy to leave." I love that line. That is such a good, profound one. And it very much encapsulates the way Precious deals with people, especially difficult individuals. "If you do not forgive, then we run the risk of being eaten up with hatred inside." These are such great quotes. I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to give you more and more quotes from each of these books. I think this is my last one. "There were occasions on which talking about distressing things merely kept those things alive, whereas not talking about them, consigning them to the past, forgetting them, allowed one to think about things that were positive, things that made the world a bit better." So there you go. There are just some of my favorite quotes. I really enjoy them, ranging from the profound to the funny, and I generally recommend these books for the quotes alone. So who is this book for? Well, this book is ideal for readers who appreciate this character-driven narrative that explore emotional depth and more complexities. I'd also say that if you are an ongoing fan of the #1 ladies detective agency, then you will find this with its familiar warmth and wisdom. And while newcomers can enjoy a standalone story that delves into universal themes, I don't know if I'd quite recommend in that way, but I do think you could still certainly enjoy this if you just want to read this as a one-off. I would also say that this is for people that like long-standing series. I think that is an appeal to some people, and that's a strength that it has going for it, at least in my mind. Who is this not for? Well, if you're looking for some fast-paced action or intricate plot twists, you may find this just to be a little too gentle. Again, the focus on the main character development and less on, you know, the criminals or whoever else you're engaging with. I would say that that may discourage some people from reading it, but as usual, I love these books and I really think that more people should be reading them. I think that Precious and Grace reaffirms the series' commitment to exploring the human condition with empathy and grace. It's a reminder that understanding and kindness are powerful tools in unraveling life's mysteries. I'd love to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on this book in particular, of course, on the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, or if you have thoughts on anything else by Alexander McCall Smith. I've never read anything else by him. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking. Please let me know in the comments below. If you're enjoying this video or any of my videos, please feel free to share them. Or if you're interested in my long form history videos, go check that out on History Unraveled with Dr. Duncan. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. And until next time, keep those pages turning.